today our guest is Kurt Heuer. Kurt is Sheriff of Wood County, and we'll be talking about a lot of different things, including some of the efforts that the Wood County Sheriff's Department has made following the 911 incident that everybody knows about, and there's no need to go into why we'd be talking about that. And we'll be also talking about a lot of other things as well that are of interest to you, and well, at least we hope that they're of interest to you. That's our aim, to be informative and a little bit of entertainment along the way, hopefully. Now, Kurt Heuer, why don't you tell us first a little bit about your background? You've become sheriff, what was it, 3 years ago?
Well, correct, serving my second of 2-year terms, and I was elected back in 1999, and previous to that I spent my entire law enforcement career with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. So.
And how long of a career was that?
Well, actually, as of the 25th of this month, that'll be 17 years full-time, and spent a couple of years as a reserve deputy in our part-time program. So all in all, probably close to 20 years.
Now, you're from around this the Wood County area.
Grew up in Port Edwards, and my folks are still there, so yeah, hometown boy.
I would imagine that the eventuality that occurred, that you became an employee of the Wood County Sheriff's Department, was probably something that you had been looking forward to doing someday, but it happened maybe earlier than you expected it to.
Well, it really did. When I first got involved in law enforcement, had an opportunity to work full-time for this department, I had set some goals myself, and I'd shared them with the administration at that time, that over time, through spending time in the department, some hard work, I was hoping to move my way up the ladder and in a number of different capacities, and ultimately someday make a bid for the sheriff's position. And it really did come probably about 6 to 8 years ahead of the timeline that I had seen. But there was an opportunity with the previous sheriff, Brian Illingworth, not running for re-election. I had a long conversation with he and others within our department, as well as my family, and we decided to move up that timeline.
Well, it seems to me that, at least from people that I talk to, and according to the voting that has taken place, you're a pretty popular sheriff.
Well, I don't know if that's something that I should comment on, but you know, it is. The voters have been very solid in who they've chosen, you know, as their sheriff for the past 2 terms. I've greatly appreciated that. Try and keep a very community-oriented working relationship countywide. The community knows that they have my ear when they want to discuss issues. Have an outstanding department that does the work 24/7, and it's the pride of the sheriff's department, I think, and my being a part of that for so long that's helped a lot of that.
You make yourself available to speak to different groups whenever you are able to do that. And the sheriff's job is not entirely an administrative job, but it's also a public relations job.
Well, it certainly is, and I've got a great administrative staff, command staff, and employees who get the job done every day, as I'd said. And when I first became sheriff, it was a learning curve and a bit of a transition. But when I talked with people in our agency as well as other sheriffs, they said you need to be out in the public, listening, talking to them about issues, educating and informing, and that's a great part of the job, and one that I really enjoy. I mean, you can just sit in so many meetings and deal with so many issues, but you need to take that out to the public and be involved. And I do. I take every opportunity I can to speak with civic groups out in the communities throughout Wood County. I have to say that what I enjoy the most is going to the schools and talking with youth of all ages and talking about law enforcement and decision making, and in hopes of getting a little better understanding of what we hope to have happen out in our communities to keep it safer and to have an impact on criminal behavior.
Now, you're involved at the county level itself, but are you involved in any way in what's going on as far as the state is concerned? I would assume that you're a member of the State Sheriff's Association.
Badger State Sheriff's Association, correct.
And I would imagine that you have an interest in the attempts to increase the length that sheriffs serve. Instead of 2 years, there's been a desire for a long time to go to 4 years, because 2 years is just a really short period of time, and a lot of that is spent campaigning to get reelected.
2 years is an incredibly short period of time when you need to become a department head, run an office, and have to, as you said, prepare yourself to be reelected, which is obviously a big part of the job, and because you want to remain there. There's a lot of programs that we've looked to put in place that take time to become effective, but the Badger State Sheriff's Association and the Wisconsin Sheriff's Deputy Sheriff's Association were both very instrumental in getting the sheriff's term to go to 4 years, which this coming November election, along with the governor in the state of Wisconsin, sheriffs will serve a 4-year term. So, and the community, 2 elections ago, my first election to become sheriff in 1999, there was a referendum for the citizens of, the voting citizens of Wisconsin, and they overwhelmingly supported 4-year terms for sheriffs. So that was good to see.
Why don't we shift gears just a little bit? 911, September 11th of last year, is on the minds of a lot of people. Yet, partly because it was devastating emotionally to a lot of people that the attack took place the way it did, and not just that there was an attack, but two buildings that nobody thought would ever come down, that everybody in the whole country was proud of seeing on the skylines of New York City, on television programs, movies, all kinds of things. Whether people consciously were aware of the fact that they were proud of it, I think that deep down they were, that it sort of stood for the country. Because the country is involved a lot in economical matters, and the economy keeps this country going the way it has been going for many, many years and growing. Now, when that occurred, there was an attempt by a lot of law enforcement agencies to beef up their anti-terrorism abilities. And what did the Wood County Sheriff's Department do, or is there something that you're still involved in bringing to the forefront as far as your staff is concerned?
Well, again, we continue today, and will for some time, and probably never ever let our guard down. We continue to operate at a heightened awareness, and we ask citizens to consider doing the same. And we get reports from the national level every once in a while where they'll get information of a potential threat, and all of a sudden there's a heightened state of alert, which is requested. We've encouraged our officers, the people that work for us, and the community, we've been very open about that, is just to maintain that heightened state of awareness. Be very aware of what's going on around you, more so than ever before. Report things of suspicion, suspiciousness that just don't seem quite right. And those things really need to be passed along to law enforcement to check out and to validate or non-validate. Otherwise, we're, again, potentially leaving ourselves open. September 11th, was absolutely traumatic to the nation. The choice of the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and had not the aircraft gone down in Pennsylvania, certainly the targets were anywhere from Camp David to the White House. Those locations were picked by terrorists for a reason. And as you had said, these were things that Americans are very proud of. They stood for something. They were the power of the United States, which obviously is what the terrorists absolutely despise. But we look at it locally, saying, is Central Wisconsin, is Wood County a target for international terrorism? Probably not. Domestic terrorism or copycat type activity where someone can create a disturbance or get some notoriety, those are the people, those are the issues that concerned us immediately in Central Wisconsin. And we came together immediately, not only as a law enforcement community, agencies from throughout Wood County, we called together, began discussions that day, and then physically sat down together the following day, along with our emergency management. Later on, after the anthrax, we brought in health department, all the components that had already been in place through Wood County Core Planning, which is led by emergency management, to address issues of disaster. And so this was simply just another path, if you will, that could need a response by local law enforcement, emergency management, fire, EMS, health department. The list grows. And so we continued developing plans to address the what-ifs. But so much was already in place here, which was interesting. There was already a domestic terrorism survey done throughout the state, which Wood County had been a part of prior to September 11th. So there was already studies and basically planning preparedness for such domestic type events locally. And then we had September 11th. So truly, although maybe unknown to the public, we were a bit ahead of the need in planning and pre-planning.
We're talking with Sheriff Kurt Heuer, the Sheriff of Wood County, which is right in the center of the state of Wisconsin, and we'll be talking not only about things that involve central Wisconsin, but also about things that involve the entire state. And I hope that you stay right where you are. It's a real pleasure to be doing a show for you on this channel. We call it the Gary Morgan Show. It's a program that is kind of like I did on radio for a lot of years. I did this kind of thing on radio on stations around Wisconsin, and I interviewed personalities in the news and also governors, other politicians, agency heads, organization representatives, authors, television producers, and sometimes people like you, with interesting stories to tell, to share with everybody else. Now, my aim then was to bring listeners some information in an entertaining way. And now I'm doing that kind of thing on this channel. I'm doing the same thing with guests for you on television. But on the TV version, you'll not only be able to hear the conversations, you'll be able to see the people the conversations are taking place between. And sound and moving pictures is a great concept. I hope that you'll be there. Thank you. Welcome back to more of the Gary Morgan Show. And we have with us today Kurt Heuer, Sheriff of Wood County. And Kurt, we were talking about 911 and some of the anti-terrorist activities that went on in the state of Wisconsin. First, we were talking about Wood County in particular. And then you mentioned that there was a study that had gone on the state level. Was that the Badger State Sheriff's Association that did that, or?
Well, certainly we played a part in information gathering, but it was led by the state of Wisconsin Emergency Management, and all information and data gathering went back to them for an assessment, and then based on that assessment, the state was able to identify areas of high, medium, and low potential risk for domestic terrorism. So very helpful. And then when the federal dollars came available after 911, then the state had obviously monies coming in, or still identifying the amount of money that will be coming in for training equipment and continued efforts to address issues of domestic terrorism, and that'll be filtered back into the counties through emergency management.
How much money did each of the counties get?
Well, again, it depended on the county and the level of risk, and some of that went to population centers, some of it went to centers that had nuclear power facilities. The list is long. You can imagine, for a moment what the potential targets might be. Wood County ended up, I believe, with right around $25,600, somewhere around it. That was the dollars that will come back to Wood County. Again, we all know that $25,600 isn't going to stretch real far when we talk about maybe some of the needs that need to, the things that need to be addressed in training and equipment, but it's something. And with Steve Cruiser, Director of Emergency Management, he'll bring together again the people in core planning or the local emergency planning committee and identify where those dollars should go.
That brings us to another thing, and when you're talking about budgeting that money, the Sheriff's Department has to come up with a budget on an annual basis to present to the Wood County Board. And is what's happening on the state level with state revenue sharing, is that going to be much of a problem, do you think, for the county board in trying to determine what might need to be cut in order to make ends meet?
Well, certainly, and there have been discussions, however, no abrupt or immediate action. And I have to say, I appreciate the tack that the county board has taken, saying we understand that Governor McCallum's initial call for complete cutting of shared revenue over time probably wasn't going to be the reality or the end result, but it was certainly going to create some discussion, which it has, and I think some very good discussion. And we're waiting, obviously, to see just what those budgetary impacts are going to be. And all departments are probably going to be within Wood County, if in fact there are any cuts, which I would certainly anticipate there being to some degree. We're all going to have to really search and look as to where we can make that cut and contribution, which is concerning because I think, and rightly so, perhaps I sit here as the sheriff, and you're going to do whatever you can to protect your ability to do what's expected, and that's to protect and serve. And in a lot of areas, we work with a very thin manpower. We have issues of jail overcrowding. We have some very highly impacted parts of our budget that are truly out of the control of just the sheriff's department. But I even searched to say, really, where do we want to cut? And the last thing that I want to do is have to start looking at important programs that we have in place that help with public safety, voter safety, gun safety, Crime Stoppers, which in fact really runs on its own with the community, but we have an interest as far as somebody overseeing that program, so it's manpower to us, but it's a very, very well received and program that is doing very well. But I guess my main theme here is, to find places where we can cut that I'll be comfortable with are probably non-existent, but everybody's going to have to take their share, I'm sure, and we're just going to have to see how it shakes out.
I would imagine that every sheriff has their own method of determining what the final budget is that is presented to the county board around the state. But in your case, what kind of a method do you use? Do you have different departments within your department that has to come up with a suggested budget amount for what they need to cover to do what they need to do?
My Under Sheriff Randy Rapp takes care of the budget and has done that for many years and does a great job. His process is he will look to lieutenants in the various divisions to get information from those that serve in that division as to equipment and training needs and other things that they can put in as a suggestion or request for the next budget cycle. And we will go through as administrative, or as our administrative staff gets together in meetings and prioritize and finally identify those things that we believe are viable pieces for the upcoming budget. And these are capital projects or additional items beyond what our budget normally looks like. And again, we're a public service provider. Our customer service is really our business. So most of our the dollars in our budget is tied up in salaries and benefits, equipment as far as what we need to get our job done, like squad cars, weapons, training, et cetera, et cetera. Then we go to the Finance and Budget Committee in those hearings, and obviously there's some give and take there, and things cut, and sometimes even things added in that they see of importance until we get to that final amount that will fit within the entire county budget.
We're talking with Sheriff Kurt Heuer from Wood County, and we were talking about the anti-terrorist efforts that took place, and we found out that there was an effort on the state level to find some solutions in advance if such an occurrence would take place in the state of Wisconsin somewhere. Even before the 911 incident. So there was some preparedness already being not only studied but begun to put in place before 911 began, looking ahead to the eventuality that something like that might happen. We're also right now talking a little bit about the budget problems that sheriff's departments have, and there are some things that you mentioned that would be difficult, in your view, to curtail should you have a big budget crunch as a result of state revenue sharing. There's also been some talk for some time now of a possible county sales tax to take care of some of the problems. One of the problems is that there's a lack of sufficient space in the jail. and we should go into that a little bit. A while back, the county had been studying building a new jail. I think it started out, the discussion was of that subcommittee, I guess, there was a discussion about adding on to the jail where it is, and then it was determined that that might not be feasible because of the neighborhood. And the Wood County Courthouse is on one side is in a business district, and on the other side is in a residential district. And so that could pose some problems there to be able to expand the way you need to. So then the whole plan came, discussion about a possible plan came, developed into a discussion of building a new jail. And then it was like, well, if we build a new jail, where are we going to build it? And there was always that problem of where's the money coming from? As anything, what kind of a situation is there right now as far as a possible new jail is concerned? Because there is a real, speaking of crunch, there is a crunch for space. You've begun to ship prisoners out of Wood County.
Well, and certainly there hasn't been any formal discussion, just I think a real focus now because of the decision by the board. Actually, the first resolution to build a facility was passed last April 18th. The following two resolutions that had to do with the financing of a new jail facility in Sheriff's Department was defeated. And again, it goes to where is the money coming from? The need was acknowledged. So, for that, that was a sign that the Jail Study Committee and truly had done a very good job in their homework. However, it carried a price tag which was not to be accomplished, and those resolutions on financing were shot down. We are shipping out way more inmates right now than I would have anticipated. The trend going into this year was going to be around that 8 inmates per day. We have been averaging closer to 35 inmates per day out of county. There are a number of reasons that this is occurring. It's not a single reason. So maybe there will be discussions in the future about our current bed space and what's going to finally be done to rectify that. We can ship for a time, but it can't last forever. And the building of a new facility is going to take 2.5 to 3 years, and we'll be shipping during that period of time as well. And in addition, taking care of the cost of starting a very significant capital project with interest being paid along with transporting inmates. So it's a very costly proposition. And we're trying to identify ways to save bed days. There's not a ready answer out there about how to solve jail overcrowding except to build facilities with more beds. But there are programs out there, and some that we've been studying and really ready to embark on now, that could save us some jail bed days. And every bed day has a cost to it, and every bed day that we can eliminate, we're going to save some money.
Well, we're running out of time on this program, and we'll have Kurt back and talk more about the jail problem in Wood County that a lot of counties around the state are having. And everybody's trying to come up with a solution, because you can't obviously keep shipping prisoners elsewhere. And we'll be talking with Wood County Sheriff Kurt Heuer about that and a lot of other things on another program. And we hope that you will be right out there and join us. It's a real pleasure to be doing this program for you, and I thank you very much for watching. This is Gary Morgan. We're doing a program on this station called The Gary Morgan Show. I hope that you'll be right out there on the other side of this television screen and watching as we have conversations with senators, assembly representatives, organization leaders, entertainers, news figures, and others who have some unique insights, details you need to know, or just some really great stories to share with you. We'll be bringing it to you for your information and also for your enjoyment, because we'll do our very best to not only be informative, but more than that, we hope to occasionally bring a smile to your face as well. It'll be right here on The Gary Morgan Show. Why don't you join us on this channel? It's The Gary Morgan Show, and I'm looking forward to seeing you the next time. And I hope that you are too. Please tune us in on this channel.